It's that time of the year, isn't it? It's that time of the year for our Christmassy episodes. And before we, because we got a spotlight. We're gonna do a spotlight in a couple weeks. But before that, like any kid who loves his movies, we have to make our Christmas lists. And ours is a little bit more, fantasy oriented in this episode. But as usual, hi, I'm Stephen Billings.
I'm Andrew Cabral.
And we're here for another episode of the Cinema Discovery Project, Christmas edition, whatever you want to call it. But
holiday, Christmas.
Oh no, we're in America, goddammit. No, I'm just kidding. But
I'm trying to be PC about being inclusive. Steven doesn't give a shit.
I don't give a shit about PC. You can kiss my ass. Look, I respect all religions, but look, doesn't mean I have to coddle everybody. You can believe what you believe. I believe what I believe, and let's leave it at that. I respect everybody, but doesn't mean I should have to cover up things I believe. All right.
It's interesting that you bring all that up because it has nothing to do with this episode.
It doesn't.
No,
it doesn't. This is about wonderment. This episode's going to be about wonderment, about things that we film. This is our quote-unquote Christmas list for the future of film. What director, what filmmakers, actors do we want to see make movies? And we're going to have a little bit of fun here. Get a little creative.
See, that's the way Steven went with this list.
Yeah.
And I almost treated it like a, Rock and Roll Fantasy, that song by the Steve Miller Band?
Yes.
I kind of treated it like that.
It's all just of that rock and roll fantasy. Yeah, I know the song.
Right, but instead of rock and roll fantasy, it's like movie fantasy. Like a film I would have wanted to see, or it's like a fantasy dream film that I don't know would have ever happened, probably would have never happened, definitely never happened.
Yeah.
Then I got two that perhaps will never happen, but are more likely to happen, if that makes sense. And Steven's got a whole lot more than I have to say about it.
I decided to try to think of, I tried to stay away from IP. I tried to stay away from things that are, exist already in a sense as popular, part of the popular culture, and try to pick more, nuancy kind of things, and just try to pick filmmakers I thought would be interesting in them genres or whatever, and then we also both have picked retro picks, which are or fantasy retro picks where we picked any kind of combination of living or dead people.
Yeah, mine were all deceased people.
Yes,
but that's actually the one I spent the most time thinking of because it's I think the idea I've had the longest.
Yeah,
but when it comes to things like this, I just like to point out that there's been many movie projects that have been, in the works, as they say in air quotes, and just never happened for whatever reason. And that seems to happen all of the time. Movies get announced, and then you never hear from them again. Or sometimes people will be like, oh yeah, they're still happening, but in reality they're not happening. And then you get an official announcement like a month later that they're not happening. Yeah. I mean, there's been many examples. Some of them, just for historical context, like Stanley Kubrick, who's someone I think many of us know, many of the viewers know, the great Stanley Kubrick, my favorite director of all time. He had a Napoleon film that he was working on forever. If you know Stanley Kubrick, he spent years and years and years in between movies just doing pre-production research about what he was going to do for his next movie. There's an entire gigantic book of just his stuff that you can buy from Taschen, where just all of his notes and pictures and concepts that he wanted to do for that movie. He also wanted to do a movie about the Holocaust. And I think we've talked about it when we did our spotlight on Schindler's List, how he saw Schindler's List and was like, I can't do it now because I can't make one better than this. So he just kind of gave up on that project. But there have been other kind of weird movies that possibly in the works. Like there was supposed to be a Roger Rabbit 2. There was supposed to be an Amazing Spider-Man 3 was supposed to have the Sandman movie that's been talked about for years, that has been up and down when it comes to production. That's more than likely probably going to happen in some form, in some way. But then there's crazy movies like Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian, which was supposedly going to happen, but I guess never did. Ugh. And then you get things like Gladiator 2, as if Gladiator didn't already
sum up everything in one movie. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, well, apparently they're still working on some type of quasi-Gladiator sequel that's supposed to come out. I don't know. I don't need a sequel to that movie.
No.
I mean, there was supposed to be a Halo movie 10 10, 12 years ago, that was going to be produced by Spielberg or something. There was all kind of like a push for that property to become a movie, but it never happened. And I think the most we've gotten is maybe like short films, or maybe like webisodes or web series or something like that. But that never happened. And there are some more famous ones like Superman Lives, which was going to be Tim Burton's Superman movie that got pretty close to production, and then it all kind of just fell apart at the end. Another movie was, talking about IP that Steven did not want to talk about, Justice League Immortal, which was going to be the director of Mad Max's film. Why am I blanking on his name?
George Miller.
George Miller. I almost said George Martin. I'm like, that's not the same guy. Yeah, George Miller. Like that was like literally about to start production.
Oh yeah.
And then the financing fell apart on it. And that, talk about a crazy casting. But there was going to be so many different things. And I mean, there was going to be a Twins 2 at one point.
That still could.
There's going to be an Airplane 3.
That still could happen.
I mean, Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money. I still want that so badly.
I kind of still want that one too, yeah.
I mean, but you get the general drift. There's been so many possible things. I also want to bring up that at one point, David Lynch almost directed Return of the Jedi. So that's a movie we're never going to see. But there was all kind of like Lord of the Rings things possibly in production back in the day. So you understand that you get that kind of drift. That's just kind of something that happens throughout history. I think it's happening more now that people just kind of, companies, studios see these IPs and just kind of grab them.
Oh, yeah, they just grab
we're going to do it.
We might need this one day.
Yeah, but how many times do you see, like, before a movie even comes out, we've already greenlit 5 sequels or something like that. I hate that. And it's like, come on, that's crazy. Something like, wasn't it like Mortal Instruments or Immortal?
No, it was Power Rangers.
Power Rangers said that, but there was the movie Immortal Instruments, like City of Bones or whatever.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
about.
Not
Mortal Engines.
I know what you're talking about. It's the book series, right? Didn't they do a show too?
And they were going to do a show too. I mean, years ago, when they were trying to get the Dark Tower series off the ground, that's another one that finally saw the light of day, but it probably shouldn't have because it wasn't that great. Ron Howard was in production for that for years, where he was going to do like a movie and then do like a follow-up TV series as well to continue the story or something. It was a big mess. But anywho, there's a lot of movies that, could have happened, didn't happen, but these are some of ours that we kind of just came up with on the fly.
Kind of, yeah.
I know, I mean, a little behind the scenes about this podcast. We literally came up with this idea like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So we just...
Yeah, this isn't like greatly detailed. We're just kind of coming up with some fantasy ideas of some possible things we would love to see in the future from certain filmmakers and actors. So, it's just something fun we figured we'd do. Like I said, kind of a Christmas wish list. Go with the season, okay. So
Steven, start out with yours, because I think you have
I have a couple more than him. I got a couple more in mind than him.
So I want to save mine for... Well, I think it's you do yours, and then I'll do mine. We'll go back and forth.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So
hit me.
I'll hit you with one. So I love David Cronenberg.
Yes.
So he hasn't really been doing a lot lately, and a lot of what he's been doing has been more dramatic work. He's been doing stuff like what's it called? History of Violence, which I guess you could say is somewhat horrifying, but he did what was the Dangerous Method.
Yeah, he had that mid-2000s drama run.
Yeah.
Where it was like History of Violence, then
what was the one he did with Vigo? The other one he did with Vigo.
Eastern Promises.
Yeah.
Then he did Dangerous Method. He snuck in a few more in there where they're just like these Cosmopolis, which is
and Map to the Stars.
Maps to the Stars is just a weird movie. I don't even think it's a movie that I like, but it's a movie not for everybody. But he also did a couple of other ones in there that were just more of his dramatic run. He hasn't done. I think I know where Steven's leaning, so I don't want to give it away from him.
I was gonna say I want to see him go back to his horror roots. I'd like to see him go back to his horror roots. And I don't have any specific, story in mind. Maybe something. I always love his body horror. I love The Fly. So something in that vein. and I would like to see him work with Keanu Reeves.
Okay.
Maybe like, and this is a random actor pick. I just had seen him in a lot of movies recently. He's actually just in a show I was watching, Sterling K. Brown. I was like, I love Sterling K. Brown. Put him in there, and maybe like a Rooney Mara, because she has this certain thing about her. She's got this vibe about her. I think would be good in a science fiction horror movie. And to round it out, I mean, I kind of did director, actors, and composers. And the composer I was thinking about was maybe like a Johnny Greenwood, who's did like There Will Be Blood, and he's Phantom Thread. He's worked with Paul Thomas Anderson a lot. I like his score in There Will Be Blood, where he used a lot of them, string instruments, really slowly, and it was really eerie. And I thought something like that in a Cronenberg small horror movie. With Keanu Reeves, Sterling, like it could be pretty cool. Any thoughts on that? I
like it.
You feel that vibe?
I've been wanting Cronenberg to go back to his horror roots for years. I think the last, true horror film that he did,
maybe Existence was
Existence. I've seen
pretty close.
I've seen the movie Spider, the one
I haven't seen that one.
2002.
Yeah.
With Ray Fiennes. Yeah, Ray Fiennes is in it. Miranda Richardson, Gabriel Byrne. And it's more of a psychological film.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not quite horror. It's more psychological, like art housey-ish.
Yeah.
So Existence may be his most recent horror film, and that's
kind of like borderline more sci-fi than...
Yeah, it's more sci-fi about, like, the dangers of the futuristic dependency on technology as well as the video game world, and kind of meshing those two together. That's an underrated movie in my opinion.
Oh yeah. I just think I think him working with Keanu Reeves would be cool, because I think Keanu Reeves has this, though he's not the greatest actor in the world, he's a great physical actor, I think. I think he has this kind of alien vibe. I mean, he's played an alien before. In like The Day the Earth Stood Still, or like he has this kind of like this otherworldliness to him, I think. And I think he could maybe play some kind of like, alien, or he could play some kind of just weird character in a Cronenberg movie.
I dig it.
But yeah, that's one idea I had. So, to you, what you got for me?
I have an idea that's something I've been forming for years.
Oh shit!
And not forming for years, but something I've just been thinking about myself.
He's got a script, guys. He's gonna read a script.
Yeah, I got a script for them, and I really don't. But if I had to write a script for a movie, or wanted to direct a movie myself, this would be one I would kind of want to do. But obviously, we're playing the fiction rules.
Oh wait, so you're gonna direct this movie? Crazy!
No, I wish. I put in real people. You have no idea how much I was like, I wanted to say that.
How
like,
arrogant!
It's going to be written and directed by me, produced by Stephen Billings, and
how arrogant!
Whatever.
But I like where you're going with it.
Well, I was cutting you in, so I mean,
yeah, thank you.
I guess.
I can't. Let me hear what it is first.
Okay, first of all, it's my my Gross Point Blank sequel.
Okay.
That has never happened. So for those of you who don't know what Gross Point Blank is, Gross Point Blank was a movie that came out in 1997. And it stars Joan Cusack, Minnie Driver's in it, like a young Jeremy Piven's in it as well. And it's kind of this action comedy, like crime movie. Not really a crime movie, but it's action comedy mostly. And basically the premise is that Martin Blank, who's portrayed by John Cusack, he returns to like his hometown for his 10-year high school reunion. And what he's been doing for 10 years, that he's basically become like a hired assassin. I think he works for like the government or something, and he's just like, he gets hired to like go around the world and kill people. But what happened is like he disappeared from like his hometown like the moment after he graduated. I think it was like very soon after. He didn't tell anybody anything. He just kind of left and went to like the military, and then went to like this program to become an assassin. But he ends up having to do a job that puts him back in his hometown. So he ends up going back there. He ends up like reconnecting with his old friends and reconnecting with his old high school love, portrayed by Minnie Driver. And they have just this great chemistry together. And it's partially like a lighter existential film, like kind of just reminiscing on a past or a future that you didn't have because of, you went and took a completely different route than you thought you were going to take. And it's a really, really great, light, fun movie. Dan Aykroyd's in the film as well. And I've always loved it. I've watched it like over and over again. It's just such an easy watch. But it came out in 1997, and it's now 2019. 2020 is literally a month away. So the movie is, 22, gonna be 23 years old. So I figured this movie would probably come out, the 25th anniversary of when the original film came out. So that would be 2022? No.
Yeah.
Yes, 2022. Sorry, I can't do my math. And the idea is that you would get the cast back, no big surprise here. You'd get the cast back of John Cusack, Minnie Driver, Joan Cusack. Those would be the principals. And the director for me would be somebody who I've been a big fan of now for about 7 years or so. Don't ask me how I remember all these years and dates. And that is and that's someone who's not particularly a film director people know of now. I think she's only doing her first. I don't think it's her first film, and I think it's a film that is going to be seen by more people. I'm just going to look it up right now, and that is Reed Morano, and she's actually a cinematographer by trade. Typically, she did a movie back in 2015 called Meadowland, and she's pretty much done 3 episodes of The Handmaid's Tale, but I think she's also a producer of The Handmaid's Tale.
So why her and not like the original director?
One I looked up his filmography, and honestly, he's kind of a nobody.
So he's never really done anything else.
To be honest, like he did like Grosse Pointe Blank, and then he did a bunch of movies in the 70s. I don't know where they got him from. I don't know where they got him from. If you're curious, his name is George Armitage, and he's still around. Was born in 1942, so you have to figure he's pretty much retired.
Yeah, never mind. He's probably gonna die.
His last movie was, his last movie that he only has 7 credits. His last movie was The Big Bounce.
Wow.
That came in 2004.
Wow.
Yeah, look at somebody. He did a film in 71, 72, 76, 79, then took a big gap to 90, and then 97, and then 2004.
Huh.
So we're talking like a spread out directorial filmography. He's got more writing credits when it comes to like television than he does have with film directing, and only like 4 producing credits. So I've just always thought of Reed Morano because when I originally saw her, she was in that documentary Side by Side.
Yeah.
That one about pretty much the
yeah.
history of cinematography. The movie, Keanu Reeves is in it, and he just goes around like, interviewing a bunch of filmmakers and cinematographers, and they just talk about the evolution of the aesthetic of cinema, essentially. Going back all the way from the early, 8mm cameras all the way up to the digital age now, and she's in it, and she's just talking about, her love of film and just the different aesthetics of film versus digital and what she prefers and all that stuff. And I've always really just liked her knowledge of film in general. She is doing a movie that is coming out this year. I don't know, it was supposed to come out this year, but it's coming out next year. And it's the movie... When did it come out? No, she did a movie last year called I Think We're Alone. I Think We're Alone Now. Came out 2018. But she's also doing... she was also doing a different movie. Hold on. Oh, The Rhythm Section. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's in post-production now.
Yeah, Blake Lively.
That's the one with Blake Lively where it looks like... a woman seeks revenge against those who orchestrated a plane crash that killed her family.
Yeah. That looks interesting. Films. Looks interesting.
I've seen the trailer. It's supposed to come out in January, which is not the best time, but you never know. January 31st, it's supposed to come out. And I really love her aesthetic, and I just kind of want to see her direct more movies. So I'm like,
yeah, why not?
You know what? Why not Grosse Pointe Blank sequel? What I kind of want for the movie when it comes to kind of plot, I've been thinking about it. Obviously, it's 25 years later. So typically in the 25 years later, these two characters, John Cusack and Minnie Driver, have I like to think that they got married and they now have a family. But for years I was thinking, what if their son becomes like an assassin? But then today I'm like, why does it have to be a son? Why can't it be a daughter? And I'm like, okay, daughter assassin, who should be their daughter? And Steven, you know who this actress is, and I know that you're also in favor of her as well, and that is Haley Lou Richardson.
Oh yeah,
I was like, she was in Columbus, a film that Steven and I both really, really love.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, why not her? She's pretty much the right age, and she's a great actress.
Oh yeah.
Why not her be their child? Perhaps she's doing the assassination, like she became an assassin and didn't tell them, or perhaps like she's
that means that Cusack's not that good of an assassin then. If he doesn't realize.
Well, yeah, if he can't tell. Well, perhaps he's been out of the game for so long that he's lost his skills or his instincts. You know what I mean? Perhaps he's been out of the game for 20 years or whatever. And he can't pick up on things like he used to pick up on. I had another idea where that he was actually still doing the assassin missions and just not telling his wife about it. But that's something that's been done in movies.
I was going to say that's a Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah, a spouse hiding like their things or whatever. It's kind of a Mr. and Mrs. Smith thing. And what is interesting that Grosse Pointe Blank isn't really an action movie.
Yeah,
it's a movie about like relationships and stuff like that. And it's a movie that has a couple of action scenes in it, but they're mostly like third act, climax action scenes. I think this one would perhaps lean into the action a little bit more. For example, like I would love an opening scene that would be like opening the movie with an action scene. I know that's a little cliche now, but I feel like that's the way to really get people into it.
Well, maybe the movie, being that it's many years later, and if they ended up having a family, and maybe this is many years later and their kids are leaving for their own lives, maybe the movie can be about rediscovering what they were when they were young.
True. Yeah. Oh, maybe. Maybe she goes along with him on. Maybe she goes along with him on missions or something like that. I don't know. Maybe
it could be almost like an Incredibles situation where he gets back into the game, and then she, wants things for herself too, just like in the second Incredibles, wants to go off and do her own thing, and it could kind of be somewhat of that maybe.
I was thinking. I keep thinking of. This is not really a spoiler, but the ending of True Lies, where like they're now kind of like, Arnold was what was he in that, like a spy or something like that, and then like his wife like kind of accompanied him at the end of that movie or something like that. There was something that they were definitely leaning into a sequel for when it came to that plot line, and that was something I'm surprised they haven't mined in the 25 years that movie's been around. So I've always wanted a Grosse Pointe Blank sequel. That's kind of my thing, because I think it's a film that the characters are strong enough to make a sequel, and I really don't think it has to be a high-budgeted movie. I mean, we're not talking $100 million here. We're talking way under that. I mean, cut that. John Cusack is not the draw that he used to be. He's not probably commanding as big a salary as he used to command. He's still making movies, though, but they're kind of more on the lower, like, straight to home, straight to streaming type movies these days. Minnie Driver, I think, has transitioned more into television. She had a television series. I don't know if it's still going on, but I've always loved Minnie Driver. I loved her in Grosse Pointe Blank. I loved her in Good Will Hunting, which I think they both came out in the same year, because they both came out in '97, I think. And I know I've always wanted to see her be in more movies. I felt like she was a bigger star back then. She's kind of like going away a little bit. It's kind of like a revival film for both John Cusack and Minnie Driver.
All right,
I kind of like that idea.
Interesting.
But
all right,
Steven, your next
one? We'll go to one of the big swings here.
Wait, before I transitioned, I actually did go as deep as having a DP for it. I was gonna do Rachel Morrison, who was a DP on Black Panther. She's a DP on Mudbound. She was a DP. Steven? She was a DP on I almost lost you there. And she was a DP on some other stuff too. She was actually like one of the only female cinematographers to ever get nominated for an Oscar, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, she was a DP on Dope and Fruitvale Station.
All right.
So yeah, so she has a great eye for aesthetics.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
me. I love
I mean, I thought about going DPs too, but I just didn't have enough time to really.
What's crazy is I think you probably went composers while I went with DPs. Because I couldn't think of composers off the top of my head. If it's me thinking about composers, I think of like Hans Zimmer for everything, or like
I guess the way I saw it was that the music it was more different than the directing. Right. You know when you think of directors, you kind of link them together with their cinematographers. So I figure whoever usually does their movies. Just think about how their movies usually look. So I just figured I'd go with. Okay. I figured I'd go with scores.
I was just more thinking of like, how would this movie sound aesthetically? Like something like a horror movie like you were talking about has a different sound than like an action comedy that I'm thinking of. You know what I mean? It's gonna be a lighter sound versus a darker tone.
Well, one of my bigger swings here, with one of our big directors, Christopher Nolan. I mean, I love Christopher Nolan. We all love Christopher Nolan. And I had to think of something that I don't feel like he's done yet. And I think eventually he's going to get around to his biopic. It's like all these big directors eventually tell the story of some famous person or somebody that's interesting to them. And there's somebody that I've always wanted to see an updated biopic. They've never really done a biopic of him, but he did have a movie back in the 40s. And it's for the American writer Jack London. Jack London's famous for writing like Call of the Wild and White Fang, and his actual real life was very interesting. He was a pirate, basically. Like, he was a sailor. He was in the gold rush in California. And of course he got into his writing. He was kind of one of the writers that kind of started getting into science fiction, that kind of pushed science fiction into the literary arts, and he eventually died at a very young age, 40 years old, of many illnesses. He had scurvy, he had a lot of things, alcoholism, a lot of things, but very interesting life, and I've always wanted to see a real biopic of him. And there's a lot of great lead actors that could play him. I'm a big Jake Gyllenhaal fan. So maybe Jake Gyllenhaal working with Christopher Nolan, doing this epic, biopic that spans from him being a sailor to him going to China to the gold rush, seeing the inspirations he has for all his eventual novels and short stories that he would eventually write. And there's some great autobiographies that they've written that I think there's one particular one I read a while back ago that would be kind of a great basis for maybe a movie. So, because the way they write the book is, it kind of starts at the end, which is kind of what a lot of movies do with biopics, and then goes back, and then they go forward and back, and it would kind of work really well. And I think Christopher Nolan, I would like to see him do something a little smaller again, though this can be wide in scope, something a little bit more on a personal level. I'd like to see him focus in on one character, and do something maybe a little more sincere instead of cold and science fiction-y. He's been delving into a lot of science fiction in his career, which is great. I mean, I love his movies, but Dunkirk was a nice change, but still kind of a very cold movie. I'd like to see him do something a little bit warmer, something a little bit more personable.
I like that idea. One, I didn't know that you were such a big fan of Jack London.
Oh, I wouldn't say
you never mentioned him up
fan,
until now.
But I did read a biography back in high school on him. I was really into him then. It's been a while since I've looked into him, but I just was always fascinated by him and thought that it would make for a great film. So,
what's interesting is I've never read a Jack London book, because I'm only now getting around to reading classics that you always heard of but never read back in when you were younger. Just because, I don't know, in high school and then college, you kind of just, I don't know, my experience was you read a lot of the same books over and over again in different classes. That kind of happened. I can't tell you how many times I read To Kill a Mockingbird.
Jeez.
At least 4 or 5 times. And then but you
the
always
Canterbury
missed out on a certain
Tales.
classic. Oh, I read that. Yep, in high school and college. I read, The Yellow Wallpaper, I think I read in high school and college. So many different things. Like, Beowulf, I did in high school and college. So many. But coincidentally, I never really read anything by like Hemingway or Charles Dickens or any of the big names that we all seem to know and that they made movies about and all that kind of stuff. But Jack London is very fascinating to me just because he looks like he lived a very eclectic life.
Yes.
It looks like he did a lot of different things. What I really find fascinating is that he was a war correspondent in 1904 in the Russo-Japanese War, which is kind of a pretty important war when it comes to the global politics of early 20th century. For those of you who don't know the history behind that, basically Japan had just come out of like years and years of industrializing to the point where they wanted to become a world power, or at least throw their weight around the world and whatnot. And they took on Russia in a war. I think they ended up beating Russia, which kind of propelled them to have bigger confidence going forward. Needless to say, later on they ended up getting involved in World War II and all that kind of stuff. But progressively you got to get there. You can't just play with the big boys right away. You got to go from something to nothing to something, because this was only like less than half a century after they got rid of that whole feudal Japan, with the samurais and stuff like that, and now they're kind of more industrializing when it comes to like manufacturing and all that kind of stuff. I just find that stuff fascinating. But then he was in, he had a couple of marriages, and he was really just a traveling man. It's interesting that he died at, like you said, 40. He was really kind of, relatively young from our standpoint.
He lived a hard life. He definitely lived.
I like the idea of Jake Gyllenhaal playing him.
There was a few guys that came into my mind, but it has to be relatively around that. Somebody that can play young and then also play up into his 40s. And Jake's I think Jake has that kind of face that you shave him, he can look young, pretty young still.
I would say Ryan Gosling look that age. Yeah. Because they're both like, how old is Jake Gyllenhaal? He's got
to be in his mid-30s by now, at least. He
I
might be close to 40 by now, but
I know that Gosling is 39.
Yeah,
which is.
I also thought about Leonardo DiCaprio, but he'd already worked with Nolan, and I was like, we've already seen that pair. I'd like to see Jake work with him.
We've also already seen he's done a couple of biopics. Leo has.
Yeah.
He did The Aviator. Even the Revenant.
He did J. Edgar. He did.
Yeah, he did. I watched that the other day, Steven.
Still not good.
Not great. It's such an uninteresting movie about perhaps an interesting person. I mean, I know this is a discussion for a different time, but I don't know. I didn't feel myself it felt too dry to me when it came to the story.
Yeah.
His most interesting aspects for J. Edgar were the most controversial ones that may or may not be true. That he was homosexual.
Well, I think the wrong director made the movie. So.
Oh, Clint Eastwood. Yeah. Shocker.
Yeah.
The movie had such a dour palette.
Well, I was gonna say his movies. I'm getting to the point where I'm getting kind of getting lost on him, because his movies are not. He's not pushing himself, I feel like, anymore, and aesthetically his movies are kind of ugly now to me.
We should have pitched a Clint Eastwood movie that has some energy to it.
Well, I don't know if he's 85 years old, so I
know he's got no energy left. I watched. We're going way off on the tangent, but I watched. What was it? The 1517 to Paris.
Yeah,
that he did a few years ago.
Why would you do that to yourself?
Probably his worst movie. It's so uninteresting. It's so not uninteresting, but man, he needed real actors in that role, because you could tell these weren't actors, and they were just they were trying their best, but man, they needed formal training. And from what I heard, Clint Eastwood doesn't do that many takes.
No, he's like two, 3 takes, and he's done.
Yeah, it's like you really need to get the best out of these non-actors.
Yeah.
The story is interesting, but just the execution of it was just so by the numbers and just not very interesting.
But
I don't know how we got on to Clint Eastwood.
we go going down.
Well, we got the J. Edgar biopics. Coincidentally, I don't know. Do you want to transition to my next one?
Well, I was going to say, why don't I go ahead and do my next one again?
Okay.
And then,
I had a cool transition there, but whatever.
Well, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, so we can evenly do this after this, because you got less picks than I do.
I do.
But, true. Okay, let me go ahead and, like I said, Jack London, Christopher Nolan, I'd love to see that.
I like it. I like that idea.
Cool.
That actually could happen.
I hope so. I'm gonna throw it at him. I'm gonna I know Chris, so I mean.
Yeah, text him.
I'll text him.
Ask him how his movie's doing. It's coming out next year.
Yeah, Tenet, and I can't wait to see it. So okay, you'll like this. A film noir. Okay.
Ooh.
I thought about this. This came to my mind. I was like, the film noir genre. We don't see a lot of film noirs with primarily a black cast, do we?
True.
We don't. So I was thinking.
There have been a couple.
Mm-hmm. But it's you don't really see it. So I'm thinking a black and white film noir, like old looks, but obviously for today, directed by Ava DuVernay.
I like it.
Starring, of course, like the greats, like Denzel. Get like a Jeffrey Wright in there. Get like a Sam Jackson, get like Naomi Harris, get like almost primary black cast, and do like a film noir of some kind. Whether it's a romantic one, whether it's crime oriented. I mean, you can mix it all together however you want to. I just think that it's not something I've really seen a lot of, so I'd like to see that combination. I think Denzel being in a film noir would be like perfect. He has
very cool idea. I like the idea. I don't mean to piggyback up, but I think I'm trying to look it up. There was a movie that he was in that was a neo-noir because, it came out in the 90s. Was it Devil in a Blue Dress?
Devil in a Blue Dress, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that's kind of a new. I think he plays like a detective in that. Let me look it up.
I mean, you could look at a few of his movies as being. I mean, but I'm saying Denzel going full on like making it black and white, try to make it more classic noir than, Are you
gonna have the classic
jazz scores? Or something?
I was gonna say jazz score with the saxophone.
Yeah, I want it to be old school, man. Yeah.
Pianos and all that.
I mean,
kind of stuff.
If they can make The Artist, a silent film in present day. And it win an Academy Award. They can make a goddamn film noir.
In A Devil in a Blue Dress, he plays a private detective. You don't get
there you go. He can do it.
Than that.
We know he can do it.
Yeah, he's trying to solve a murder and missing woman and very interesting.
Well,
I like the idea. Yeah. What I really wanted to come up with a movie for Ava DuVernay actually myself, and I didn't have the time because I love Ava DuVernay. I think she's an amazing.
Well, I think she's got great style.
Director.
I think if anything, she has great vision. Because even though I didn't love the movie she just recently did. What was it? The Wrinkle in Time.
Yes.
But I thought it was directed really well. I thought it was very interestingly directed. So I think with that style, black and white cinematography. She could do something very interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's that TV miniseries When They See Us on Netflix that she directed, and I think she was a producer on it as well. I'm trying to look. Yeah, she was a executive producer, and she directed all 4 episodes of it, and it's amazing.
Yeah,
like it's really powerful and really stylishly well directed, and it's a really powerful story. I love Selma. I think Selma's amazing.
I like it. Okay.
I think it's a really powerful movie.
I think the
really
movie, the subject matter is great. I think some of the acting's great. I honestly, if I'm being honest, when I did see it, her directing didn't work for me in that movie.
Woo! Yeah. Okay. Hot take.
It is a hot take for me because I just think that she just didn't. I didn't think that the directing was engaging with what was going on. I thought it was maybe a little bit too withdrawn, like where she didn't move the camera enough. Where
well, I think she definitely accentuated the seriousness of the situation. I don't know, some of those scenes of just on the bridge and being in the police brutality, all that stuff I thought was really it was directed to maximum effect.
Well, like I said,
eliciting an emotion.
It's what I felt when I first saw it. I haven't seen it again since, so I could change my mind, but when I remember when I saw it, I was just thinking throughout the movie that I thought that this wasn't being directed I thought it was boring direction. Through not through every scene, but like a lot of the most important scenes. Some of the scenes where he was making speeches and stuff were very, I think, boring. I think she was trying to rely on the actors to carry the scenes and not doing anything with the camera.
Okay, I understand.
But that can work sometimes, not moving the camera. But I think sometimes it ain't even that. Sometimes it's the set direction. Like if the background, the environment isn't interesting enough, I can get bored by looking at it.
I've seen her earlier film from 2012 called Middle of Nowhere.
Yeah,
I saw it on Netflix a couple of years ago. It stars oh man, I think David Oyelowo in this as well. Let me look at the cover.
You don't know already?
What?
He said you don't already know? You brought it up.
What's cool, I think, is I go to the IMDb, and it's one of those where it's cast overview first build only, so it, doesn't have the actors in, David Oyelowo's in it. I think Anthony Mackie's also in it as well. It's one of those where IMDb has things way out of order.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen that film as well. It's also another... I think it's a good film from her. It's an earlier film from her. Like I said, I like Selma a lot. Steven less so. But I really want to see... I'm very curious to see what she does going forward. I know that New Gods movie's still in the works. And my love for the superhero DC properties and whatnot. And I really hope that ends up coming out. I don't think there's any release date for it right now. And I'm pretty sure today, to date ourselves a little bit, Warner Brothers came out with their schedule for the next couple of years, and that wasn't on it when it came to their big movies. So I'm curious to see when that's going to happen, because I know she was working on the screenplay a little while ago with comic book writer Tom King, who wrote a little bit of New God stuff recently. But yeah, I would love to see Ava DuVernay do a film. Do a film. I would love to see her do a film noir. That would be dope as hell.
Cool.
So we're transitioning to mine now. Yeah, this is not my retro pick yet. I guess we're saving that for.
I'm saving that for the last one. Yeah.
Okay. This is a movie that's a biopic that I've talked about a little bit before. I think when we did our, I think we did a whole musical biopic episode for one of our spotlights. Not spotlights. One of our episodes of the podcast, and basically I would like a biopic about the lead singer of Alice in Chains, Lane Staley, because I think he's just an underrated musical artist that I think not a lot of people remember. I think unfortunately, when it comes to the grunge era of music, that early 90s Seattle scene that that kind of took over rock and roll, the big ones kind of just always get remembered: Pearl Jam, Nirvana,
Soundgarden,
and
Alice in Chains.
Also Stone Temple Pilots, who coincidentally were the were from LA, so the LA grunge scene. And basically, what is interesting, most fascinating to me about that era, and I think I said it then, I think I'm gonna repeat myself now, is that a lot of the people who were involved, the musicians, a lot of them are dead. Bluntly put, they're deceased. And a lot of them kind of died due to their own vices, whether it be drug overdose or suicide or whatnot. A lot of the stuff that they were singing about were very emotional stuff, and that was kind of the whole hook of the grunge era, was that it was very emotionally relevant music. People were bearing their souls up there, which was different in that whole like almost false, like 80s metal glam rock that we got from the 80s that just, everybody, they made fun of in Spinal Tap. So this was more kind of real personal music, and a lot of them kind of fell to their own personal vices, and one of them was Lane Staley. He died in 2002. I think they didn't discover his body for several days because by that point he had pretty much just shut out everybody else, like in his personal life, and he was just completely alone when he died. It's really, really sad and really, really depressing, and that's kind of how this movie would go for me. I was thinking when it comes to the biopic that I want to see this guy make a comeback, and music was kind of what really made a lot of people love his career, and that is Cameron Crowe. I want to see Cameron Crowe come back to doing a movie related to music. He did most famously Almost Famous, which is one of my favorite films of all time. I know Steven loves it. He has his personal roots in the music world, working, I believe, as a rock journalist back in the 70s, which is kind of why Almost Famous is a quasi-biopic for him. But this is a different era of music, but I think it's something that he could probably connect with on a personal level because music tends to be a universal thing. I struggled when it came to casting. I didn't know what age to do it. I didn't know what person would look good doing it. Would like look the part, sound the part. Obviously, like when it comes to singing, doesn't quite matter because you can always put in somebody, put in the real voice in ADR and stuff like that. Let me see. Lane Staley died at 34, so it would have to be somebody in their mid-30s. Initially, I was thinking like a Ryan Gosling, but when I had Ryan Gosling in my head, I was thinking of that film that he did years ago, the one where he was like that school teacher who was on drugs, coincidentally. Not Puncture.
It's Half Nelson.
Yeah, I think you're right, Half Nelson.
Yeah.
And how there's just like when he looked strung out, he looked like he had the sunken eyes and all that kind of stuff, and that's kind of how Lane Staley looked. And then I was thinking maybe Ryan Gosling's too old now because he is 39, going on 40. That may be too old. So I was thinking going a little off the wall, making this kind of a smaller indie film. And I was thinking of an actor that no one, I don't think, is going to remember. Just because it's not a big famous actor, didn't really do any movies, but he's been an actor that I've been a big fan of. Actually, Steven, you may know who he is. Do you remember the movie Small Soldiers?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I was thinking of Gregory Smith, who looks similar to Lane Staley when it comes to just facial looks and just his body is slim like Lane Staley. He's more of a television actor. He was in that like cop procedural Rookie Blue for like 5 years or so, that Canadian cop movie.
Yeah.
Not cop movie. It was a Canadian produced television series about police officers. He was in that. He was in one of my favorite television series of all time, in Everwood. It was a show I was obsessed with back on the old WB network that's now been beyond defunct. I don't know if anybody beyond our generation remembers the WB network from the 90s into like the mid 2000s. Where it was just an eclectic group of shows. Like they had comedies and they had dramas. Dawson's Creek, one of your favorites, was on there up until it ended. And I just remember what was that frog that Warner Brothers had? Michigan J Frog or whatever it was.
Yeah.
He was like their mascot for a while. It was a very weird network. But needless to say, that show ended up getting canceled after 4 seasons when UPN and Warner and WB Network, not WB, WB Network, whatever it is, they merged to form the CW, which is now still in existence now. And I've always really liked him as an actor. I've always kind of like followed his career all along. He was also in the movie The Patriot. He played one of the young sons of Mel Gibson in that film. But I liked him, and I was trying to pair him up with somebody who was younger, but a female actress, younger, but somebody who was also, I think, a really good underrated actress. And I was just going through a bunch of names, and because sadly, Lane Staley did have a former fiance who died of an overdose in 1996. So she died at a very young age. So I was thinking of Shailene Woodley, actually, because I really liked Shailene Woodley in some of the films that she's been in. When she first came on the scene, she was in like that ABC Family show about the pregnant teenager. I really didn't like it at all. I thought it's not a good show. But then she did The Descendants with George Clooney, and she was amazing in that film. I thought she was really fantastic.
Yeah, she's pretty good and Spectacular now too.
Yeah, she was really good in that as well. Then she did the Divergent series, which kind of just petered out into nothing. She was in the Big Little Lies, that series that's on HBO. She's really fantastic in that as well recently. So I was thinking Shailene Woodley would have been nice for that. When it came to directing, I told you Cameron Crowe to kind of come back, because Cameron Crowe, his career has gone into nothingness.
Well, that, I mean, his connection to that scene is obvious. So that would be a good pairing, definitely.
Yeah, I was looking up his more recent work, and he did We Bought a Zoo in like 2011. Then he did Aloha in 2015,
which was. People hated that movie.
People, yeah, they can't give that movie. They couldn't give that movie away at the stores. That Blu-ray. I remember it was like $5 at one point, and nobody bought it.
Yeah.
And then he had that show Roadies on Showtime.
Yeah.
In 2016, got canceled after one season, and he directed like 4 episodes of that.
Yeah.
So it's like he hasn't really done it since 2016.
I don't know what he's doing.
He's got to get. I want to see him get back in the game, because I think about Almost Famous a lot.
Yeah.
Like I go back to that movie on a regular basis.
I think about Jerry Maguire. I think about,
who doesn't think of Jerry Maguire?
I know, right?
Tom Cruise is great in that movie.
Yeah.
Renee Zellweger, also fantastic in that movie. I also think of, coincidentally, I was talking about John Cusack earlier. I really like the movie Say Anything, which was one of Cameron Crowe's really early films. May have been his first film.
Singles, which is very much a 90s, the 90s throwback.
You want to talk about, oh my goodness. Steve,
I was going to say, that's why it's such a perfect connection. I thought that's where we were going with this.
And you know who performs in that movie at like a bar or something is Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
And it's set in Seattle during the grunge era.
Yeah, and Chris Cornell's in it. And
yeah. Wow, that's... You just...
Yeah, I thought that's why you picked him.
I didn't even think of that till you just said it. Yeah. Because Singles is a movie that kind of gets overlooked. Like, no one talks about it ever.
I think
I didn't know it existed until a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think he also directed a Pearl Jam documentary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He directed, like, 2 of them?
Pearl Jam 20 was the last one. I have that.
Yeah, he did. Well, he did a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers video short. That was like his first ever thing. Then he did Say Anything. Then he did Alice in Chains' Wood video short. He did their music video for, I think, their song Wood back in 1989. So yeah, there's the connection right there. Yeah, he did Pearl Jam 20
perfect,
back in 2011. Yeah. Oh yeah, perfect. Oh man, see, this is why Steven's here, because he's bringing up all this music stuff. People don't know this, but Steven knows a lot about music.
I know a little bit. I like the 90s. The 90s is my time. All right. Well, that sounds good. I'm in on that one.
Steven?
Before I get on to my next one, I forgot to say, for my Christopher Nolan movie, of course, Hans Zimmer's doing the music.
Oh, come on. Oh,
and also, my Ava DuVernay movie, I was going to say Howard Shore.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Cool. I thought it would be maybe like Alexander Desplat.
Maybe. Okay. I'll take anybody, But Howard Shore came to my mind for some reason.
I'm thinking, who's going to do the music for the Lane Staley movie? And then I'm like...
Alice in Chains.
Alice in Chains. I don't know. Like, those biopics are interesting because it's like, is there a musical score, or do you just use the music from the band?
There could be a score in there somewhere, probably.
Because in Bohemian Rhapsody, they pretty much just use Queen's music throughout the whole thing.
I mean, yeah, it usually takes up the whole movie. It depends on what your movie's about. Is it about showing off all their hits, or is it actually about the character?
It's more of a I wanted it to be
like The Last Days that they did with Kurt Cobain.
Maybe that's but way less art housey.
Yeah.
I was in my head I was thinking of Rocket Man the whole time.
Yeah.
Because Rocket Man is a film that shows like the whole life of what's
Elton
his
John.
name? Elton John, but it also doesn't shy away from the fact that he had a lot of serious personal issues when it came to alcohol and drugs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I really liked how raw that was. I almost went with that director, that whole team. You know, just have that whole team make the Lane Staley pick. But I think they really suited themselves
You need to get a
like
little
Elton John.
Yeah.
You know, Elton John had a lot more, was bright
Flair
and vivacious and colorful. You know, Alice in Chains was grunge, but they were more like metal grunge fusion, which is like of a darker, harsher sound. Man, Alice in Chains, their music just like hit you, like hit you real hard. Yeah. I've told Steven this a lot. Their music's very cathartic for me.
Yeah,
you know, it's very really gets inside of you.
Yep. All right. Well, this one's going to be an interesting one. Because this is something people debate all the time because he keeps saying he's only making one more movie. And that's Quentin Tarantino. This is my idea for a Quentin Tarantino movie I'd like to see. And he's and he hasn't delved in this technically yet, but he's talked about delving in this genre. I do want to see him do a sci-fi movie. And he's definitely talked about doing Star Trek and stuff like that, but we don't know if he'll ever get to do that. But if I, wanted to see him do his own sci-fi original story, with a band of characters on a ship doing something.
Okay.
I would like, of course, and I've talked about this, I've always wanted Nicolas Cage to be in a Tarantino movie. So, yes. So think about this. You got a Tarantino written movie, directed, and it's with a band of weird individuals on a ship doing something. And it's got Tarantino. I even thought Eddie Murphy should be in this. I was like, Eddie Murphy doing Tarantino dialogue? That might be kind of interesting. And he's in a comeback period now, so, let's bring him in there. Tarantino likes to bring back people. Ethan Hawke, Willem Dafoe, Charlize Theron, and Frances McDormand. All on a ship.
Nice. It's a good cast.
Yeah. With the score by Trent Reznor.
Nice. Nice.
And just think about it. Just think Nicolas Cage saying Tarantino dialogue. It's going to be magnificent.
Oh man.
They go to the space.
I really want to see it.
They go to the space Pizza Hut. And they, is that a pizza with cheese? Royale cheese? What do they call what they call space pizza? Hyperspace with cheese.
El Pizza of space.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Whatever. But it's been my dream. I want to see Nicolas Cage in a Tarantino movie. That's the main thing with this, is I want that to happen.
What's interesting is Quentin Tarantino is such an eclectic person that he would put Nicolas Cage in his.
I don't know why it hasn't happened yet.
He's probably a fan of him. He's most definitely a fan of him. And Nicolas Cage right now, he's taking every role. He's not saying no to any role.
He would never say no to a Tarantino movie.
I'm pretty sure. I just saw the other day that he's literally going to be playing himself in a movie. I don't even know.
It's amazing.
Yeah, this guy, he never stops. It never stops. He's got to pay off his debts, I guess.
I don't care what it is. I just want to see him do what he's doing.
What's interesting is I'm trying to keep up. I can't even keep up with him. I've got a whole.
No, there's no way you can watch all his movies.
Yeah, it's impossible.
He's like damn Netflix. He's Netflix by himself.
Dude, he drops one every couple of months. It would show up on Netflix randomly. It's I don't even know he was doing this movie.
He should just start his own streaming service. Cage Flicks.
Oh, I'd watch it.
Yeah.
I remember a couple of years ago I sent you that article where, at the Alamo Draft House, they had Nicolas Cage movie marathon, and he showed up to surprise the audience, and they went bananas. Oh, there's going to be a Nicolas Cage con in the future, not a convention, or just all Nicolas Cage stuff.
Can't wait.
My goodness!
You'll see thousands of people with Nicolas Cage masks on.
Thousands. It's going to be Nicolas Cage character cosplays.
It's a cult.
They're gonna even do they're gonna even dress up as what he looked like as Superman, and it's a movie that never happened.
Yes,
you know what I mean? Crazy.
I'm excited.
The Cult of Cage.
Yes,
I guess that's what they're gonna call it. Damn, I'd watch.
I'm excited right now.
Me too. I just want to watch some Nicolas Cage stuff.
Yeah, now I'm gonna go to bed with Nicolas Cage movie on. But now we are down to our final picks, our retro picks, our complete fantasy picks.
Oh, yeah.
Putting people together that could never exist together. I have an interesting one, I think, but you go first, man. I know.
Let me go first, because I've been thinking of this one for years, too. I don't know. I got a lot of time on my hands. I just think about movies 24/7.
Basically, yes.
But years ago, when I saw Citizen Kane for like the first or second time, I thought to myself, what would a Batman movie be, directed and starring Orson Welles from the 40s?
Oh, my God.
Just because...
So wait a second. Orson Welles is Batman?
He's Bruce Wayne.
Oh, my God.
/ Batman.
I thought he was gonna be Alfred, but never mind.
And because I started thinking of the correlations between Charles Foster Kane and Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more connections there than I actually thought there would be.
Yeah.
They're both kind of orphans. Charles Foster Kane, his parents basically sold him off to an elderly person to be like his ward or heir. And he was abandoned by his parents. He was still raised by somebody, but raised by someone not his biological family, his parents. Bruce Wayne, his parents, of course, tragically died, and he was raised by Alfred, pretty much. So, there's that connection there. They're both, like, huge, wealthy, have so much money and property and all that kind of stuff. And they're both also got a lot of personal, like, demons and problems. They both have, like, egotistical issues. They both push everybody away who wants to, like, help them, whether it be Joseph Cotton's character and Charles Foster Kane, or whether it be Batman's always pushing away, like, people in his quote-unquote Bat family or whatnot, whether it's, Dick Grayson or whomever. I always thought there was a lot of, connection there. And they both have, like, super large, expensive homes that are just, like, out in the outskirts of the cities and are just far away, and they're mysterious, and they have, like, probably, like, hidden chambers and compartments. Charles Foster Kane has Xanadu. Bruce Wayne has Wayne Manor. So I was like, all these connections, right? And they're both kind of somewhat playboys. I mean, Bruce Wayne's definitely a playboy. He always has a different woman, but Charles Foster Kane, of course, got married, but then cheated on his wife with that that singer. Or whatever, I use singer in quotes because, what part of the movie is that she's not a great singer, but he's just trying to promote her. And I don't know, it was just fascinating to me. So I always wanted to see what Orson Welles would be like as Bruce Wayne / Batman and direct the movie. And the cast I have here is for, lead actor would be Orson. Lead actress, I went with Ava Gardner as Selina Kyle / Catwoman. I could have went with Marlene Dietrich, just because Marlene Dietrich and Orson had, they knew each other, they were friends. Marlene Dietrich was in Touch of Evil. Great story about Touch of Evil is that, the studio didn't even know that she was in the movie until they saw the dailies. Like, he just never told them. So I was like, I always love that story. But Ava Gardner just, she looks like she has that smokiness about Selina Kyle. And, in that I think that relationship is extremely important between Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne. And for supporting actor, Conrad Veidt as the Joker. If you ever want to know where the look of the Joker came from, it came from Conrad Veidt in the movie he did, I believe, is The Man Who Laughs.
Yes.
You just look up that still. It is beyond frightening. And he was also in Casablanca. He passed away like 1943, but in this fantasy world, I want him to live a little bit longer so he can do this movie. And he's just absolutely frightening as the Man Who Laughs. And that would be kind of a cool, like, if you don't call him the Joker, call him, the Man Who Laughs. I want him in there, and then I also want what am I looking at here? Oh, Robert Mitchum as Harvey Dent. What do you think, Steven?
Yeah, I like that.
Harvey Dent / Two-Face, because I wanted to get Robert Mitchum in there somehow.
I thought you were going to pick somebody like what's his name? Like a Grant, Cary Grant or something.
The thing is, Cary Grant would be closer to Bruce Wayne, so just because he's got the the playboyish looks and just the charm.
Guess, yeah.
I guess, okay.
I guess.
So I don't know how. Trying to think of a role for. I don't know.
For who?
You know what? Cary Grant could be Clark Kent. That would be kind of
Yeah,
cool.
he could be Superman. Yeah, he could be Superman.
Why
Definitely.
not?
What about Gordon?
Gordon, I went with Claude Rains.
Okay, yeah, I can see
Claude
that.
Rains,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
an older guy. He played an authority figure in Casablanca, so
Yeah.
he could definitely pull that off.
Get Harvey Bullock could be played by James Cagney.
Oh, that would be pretty good. That would be pretty good. I like that. Or the Riddler played by James Cagney.
Yeah.
Because the
Hey,
Riddler's kind of zany. The Riddler's kind of zany, but
Yeah.
also like saying riddles and stuff. But I came up with Rita Hayworth has to be in it, but I want Rita Hayworth as Poison Ivy.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Redhead, with the green outfit, I think would just look absolutely fantastic. And I honestly, when it came to behind the scenes, when it came to DP, I thought Greg Toland, who was the DP for Citizen Kane, I think it's Greg Toland. Let me look up, because the aesthetics of he's cinematographer for Citizen Kane, Greg Toland. I really want that aesthetic from Citizen Kane, those weird shots, those weird angles, all of that kind of black and white gorgeousness. I would want this movie to be black and white.
Yeah.
I mean, it would take away kind of the color of the suits and whatnot. But I mean, if you're gonna have all of these, you gotta set it in that in that time, because I mean, the Batman character came into existence around that time.
Yeah.
So it kind of would be apropos. When it came to composers, Bernard Herrmann. He did
of course.
He composed Citizen Kane, so I want him to compose this movie as well. I'm very curious what his Batman theme would sound like. Be a cross between Psycho and whatever he did in Citizen Kane. But it would be very, very interesting. So I've always kind of thought of that. I mean, for years, I've thought of what would classic era actors and actresses look like in modern superhero roles. So this was kind of just me just brainstorming. I mean, I could have gone a bunch of different routes. I mean, I could have gone with actors from different eras. Like, I didn't have to specifically stick to that.
Yeah.
I was, as you can tell, I'm pretty much sticking to the 40s.
Yeah.
I'm just sticking to that time. I could have mixed and matched. You know what I mean? I could have.
That's kind of the direction I went. Yeah.
Yeah, I could have had Sidney Poitier in there as somebody. I could have had somebody from a modern era in there or whatnot.
Yeah.
But the idea was to kind of just stick to that time. That's why I just thought off the top of my head. So yeah, that would be my Orson Welles Batman, and I'm not even sure what the plot would be. I'm not even sure.
Who cares?
I initially I was thinking like a Dark Knight Returns, maybe an old get Orson to put on that old Citizen Kane makeup again and be an old grouchy Bruce Wayne. But then I'm like, you know what? I know I want him young and handsome and roguish. You know what I mean? Like that young Charles Foster Kane when he was just confident, just telling people you know what, I'm gonna get all those people from that other paper and you'll see. You know what I mean? So yeah, Steven, what's your retro pick?
All right. Well, this one came to this. This actually is something that I thought about a while back ago, and this just gave me a chance to bring it up. So Jackie Chan, he's always talked about how one of his biggest influences is Buster Keaton. So what if they teamed up in a movie?
Okay, I like it.
So an action comedy with Buster Keaton, Jackie Chan, directed by Gareth Evans from the Raid movies.
Okay.
And this would be shot more like modern day-ish. Basically we're bringing Buster Keaton to modern day.
We got our time machines out.
Machines. We're bringing Buster Keaton to modern day, and he's teaming with Jackie Chan, and they're partners, and it's an action comedy. And the score, you're gonna love this, done by Randy Newman. Because I wanted to have some whimsy to it. I wanted it to be like a friendship movie, but also them kicking ass.
Dude, you basically picture me like Rush Hour with Jackie Chan and Buster Keaton. I'm kind of
that's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, let me get Chris Tucker out of there with his high pitched voice, and get Buster Keaton in there.
Dude.
He won't say anything because he's in silent movies.
Just throw him in. Just throw Chris Tucker in.
But that'll be the thing is okay. Chris Tucker can play the police chief. All right, so because he can yell in that, and it'll make sense. But Buster Keaton, what'll be funny is because he comes from silent movies, even when we bring him into modern day, he still doesn't talk because he's from that time period.
Nice.
So he's like completely silent. Jackie Chan will try to talk to him, and he just can't say anything because he's from silent era.
It'll be like Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah.
You know, Kevin Smith's Jay and Silent Bob.
Exactly.
It's like Jay does all the talking and Bob doesn't do any talking.
Yes.
But you gotta have that one scene where, like, Buster Keaton has this really meaningful monologue at a very important time.
Yes, I like it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I just thought that would be an interesting meeting your hero type of movie, you know, without, of course, them doing, I mean, but it would be interesting to see them two guys in a movie together, you know, just like it would be interesting to see Stallone and Schwarzenegger at their prime in a movie together. We never saw that, you know, because they were rivals and then in their older age now have teamed up, but
now they're buddies.
They're buddies. Ooh, that's great. But yeah, that's something I thought would be really fun. Them doing a bunch of crazy stunts. I even thought about them maybe being enemies. Maybe they're not together. Maybe one's a bad guy, one's a good guy, and they had to face off against each other. Or maybe they think they're against each other, but they're not, and but they're like going after the same thing. Maybe they're both thieves, and they're both trying to get an object, and they're both having to go through these obstacles to get it. So yeah.
Sounds cool. I'm down for it.
Yeah.
I'm down
I don't know who would. Did I say who would direct? Oh yeah, Gareth Evans.
Gareth Evans.
Yeah.
So
I mean, so you know the action scenes are going to be amazing.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that stunt team's going to be incredible. I mean.
Yeah, we'll get the guys from the Raid to be in it too. Yeah.
They got to be in there somewhere.
They're the actual bad guys in the movie.
If you can stick them in Star Wars and have them do absolutely nothing, you can stick them in here to do something.
Exactly. But that's it for our Christmas wish list. I think all of these are going to come true. I believe that hard.
And if they don't, we'll make them come true.
I know Santa heard us. Thank you. Please, Santa, grant our wishes. But that's going to be it for this episode of the Cinema Discovery Project. Where can you be found, Andrew?
You can find me on Twitter at Cabzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Cabzilla Productions.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can find me with buying all my Blu-rays and stuff on Instagram, Cinema Discovery Project. You can find the audio for this podcast on Podbean and Apple Podcasts. And thank you again once for listening. And hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.